Howdy, I'm back. This is week 2, session 3B, because I needed to take a break. Thank you for indulging me. In session 3A of week 2, we were talking about sandboxing, specifically adding rooms to our sandcastle, if you will, because we've been playing in the sandbox. With the interplay of our subconscious content and our conscious content, and that equals brainstorming between these two aspects of your brain. So now we're going to, when we speak of adding rooms to the castle, this is my metaphor, if you will, for beginning to create the first layer of order on your novel as you go. Think of it like playing with a jigsaw puzzle. I used to love to play with jigsaw puzzles. I haven't done it in years, but I really enjoyed that. You spill all of the pieces out onto your coffee table, even if you haven't done it, right? Perhaps you've seen someone done it, and I suspect in school when we were little kids, even if you haven't done it lately as an adult, you have a sense of working a jigsaw puzzle. So you dump all the pieces of the puzzle on the table and you spread them out. I like that feeling in my hand. I like the tactile aspect of it. And you turn the pieces over, because obviously some of them are going to be on the back side, on the cardboard side, and immediately you notice patterns. Even if you don't look at the even if you don't look at the box to see the big picture, right? You can use that for a guide, and I suspect most people do. I know I certainly did. But even if you're not looking at the box, just by looking at the pieces now, all right? Let's just pretend you don't even have the box, because I think that's a more apt metaphor for our purposes, because you don't yet know, you don't in fact know what the big picture is of your novel. So you spill out, to use the puzzle metaphor, you spill out all the pieces on the coffee table, you spread them around, and immediately you notice patterns. For example, you can see a lot of bright yellow pieces, so you start grouping them together. Then there's a whole bunch of pieces that look like autumn leaves. The colors, the golds, the reds of autumn leaves, and so you group those together. Then there's a section that looks like, oh, that looks like that belongs to that group of people having a picnic under the autumn leaves. All right, so that looks like pieces of people, hair and whatever it is. And so you can't really see because it's a little granular, but you're gonna put that with another group. So you know that ultimately within these groupings, these individual pieces are going to fit together. You don't know exactly in what order this is all going to go, because you have to play with them. That's what playing with a jigsaw puzzle means. So you need to play with them a bit. You need to try, fit 1, 2, 3 together, and then until you find, they click into an interlocking fashion. But so that will take you a little bit of playing and moving and shifting. But before that, instantly, when you dump that box of puzzle pieces onto the coffee table, you instantly know what category they go into. That's easy. So you're really working at the macro level at this point. This is the next stage of sandboxing as relates to writing your first novel. You've built these pieces, all right, using the puzzle metaphor. You have your pieces now, and you've built your pieces from a combination of your subconscious, playful mind interacting with your conscious mind, all right? Conscious mind sees this great stuff that came out of your subconscious mind and wants to immediately brainstorm. So these are your pieces. This is your raw material, all right? And for the last week or so, this raw material has not been tangible. It's been, it's been ethereal. It's not something that you can see, touch, feel, smell. It's something you can perceive with the 5 senses. But now, because you are starting to move this raw material of interplay between your subconscious and conscious mind, and you are starting with your handwritten flashes of notes. Now you're putting them into the computer. Your conscious mind is interacting. Now you your novel is now in tangible form. A week ago, it was an idea, and an idea is like a soap bubble. You know, if you don't concretize it, it pops and it floats away. So now you have a concrete beginnings of your novel in the form of words on a page in a computer. So now that these pieces of your puzzle, your novel, are emerging, just like the jigsaw puzzle metaphor, you will immediately notice categories in this raw content, all right? And you will notice that there'll be multiple pieces within the same category, and that signals to you, even though I've shared this, but that signals to you within the context of your own process that there is, in fact, structure and organization at the subconscious level. You do not have to spend all of your conscious energy trying to yoke your subconscious mind, because it knows what it's doing really without your help, to be perfectly honest. So let it do what it's going to do, and you can be over here getting the containers, getting everything organized, so that when 6 weeks from now, when you're dealing with a lot more words, you're not going to make yourself nuts trying to find your place and trying to retrieve information that really can easily be at your fingertips. So there is this organic structure that has already emerged. And so simply all you need to do is group like categories of content together. Sounds easy breezy to me. Now, moving to organizing these categories in your computer. So far, you've been working with a singular sandbox document. Now, you're going to organize the content from this one sandbox into separate sandbox documents based on their organic structure as their organic structure dictates. All right, again, just take a deep breath. And it's no different from the puzzle pieces. Okay, the only difference is when you go to the store, you get the puzzle pieces and they're already there in a box, and all you have to do is organize them. The difference with this process is that you had to manufacture the puzzle pieces, and you've already done that. So they've been manufactured, you've, proverbially speaking or metaphorically speaking, you've dumped them onto the metaphorical coffee table known as your sandbox document. And I know I'm mixing metaphors, but this is how it's coming out. This is how it's being organized in my subconscious mind, and so I'm rolling with it. And I am going to have slides at the end of this. So you're going to take the contents of your singular sandbox document, and you're going to start to chunk out content based on how they are similar to one another, based by category. This is not busy work. If the standard length of a novel is 100,000 words, and that is the standard length of a novel, or about 300 pages, when you need to retrieve content along the way, and you will, if you are dealing with a singular document that contains hundreds of pages and tens of thousands of words, it will likely frustrate, demoralize, and demotivate you, and possibly stop you from writing, stop you from finishing your novel. This we cannot have. Why does this happen? Because these states of being, demoralization, frustration, demotivation, it stops you because they're not fun. And as I said in week 1, session 1, the reason why you're going to have a ball writing your first novel is because you're going to engage it in a way that a child plays. So if you want to work in one giant document that's tens of thousands of words long and hundreds of pages long, I'm not saying that you cannot write a novel that way. I'm pretty sure it's done all the time. I'm saying that it could potentially be very frustrating, and I will guarantee you that it will slow you down. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to have fun. We're trying to be open to something new. Try it. If it doesn't work, hey, no biggie. But this is what I am proposing. If you're on board with this, here are your prompts. Once you notice the categories, you will now create separate Word documents for each category with specific names for each category. For example, these are examples from my first novel. Black and Blinces is the name of one of my published books. It is not the name of my novel. I have the name of my novel, but I'm not putting it out there yet, okay? Let's just work with Black and Blinces. So under my, Black and Blinces, let's say, is the name of my novel, and then under that, I have another folder called Sandbox, and within the Sandbox, I have a Word document called Sandbox, and that's where I've been putting all of this raw material. So now, as your book starts, so how do you categorize? Well, you categorize based on the pieces that are there, that actually exist. For example, two characters by the name of Janna and Angie. I have here Janna and Angie argue. And those are real characters in my novel, and they do have an argument. They have, relationships have tension, and they do have an argument. And initially, I know a lot more about my book now because I'm further down in this process, and we'll meet up together. But Janna and Angie argue. The argument just came. I knew they were going to have an argument because of some behavior that I was very clear that Janna, who was my main character, because of some of her behavior, and I knew that over time this was going to build up, and Angie was going to blow, and they were going to have an argument. I didn't know where the argument was going to occur. I didn't know exactly what was going to precipitate it, the exact moment, but I knew that they were going to have one. So basically, that came out in my main sandbox, and so I created a separate sandbox, a categorized sandbox called Janna and Angie argue. Another example of a category, Hetty and Chastain. These are two other characters. Hetty tells Chastain about Janna. Okay, and that's sort of that's a reveal scene where this character by the name of Hetty, who's just up to no good, is, playing with people's lives like chess pieces, and she decides to tell this man something about the woman that he's involved with. Another example, Chastain and Janice's first kiss scene. All right, there is a romance in my novel, and so I need to show the trajectory of that romance. When they meet, they were friends, they're working together, first kiss, and then, of course, we're leading up to some good sex, and then, of course, it all falls apart because, it wouldn't be a novel if there was no conflict and drama. So so I just take the snippets from my main sandbox. Okay, Chastain and Janna's first kiss scene. Okay, yeah. Oh, and down here, yeah, it's in a restaurant. So just throw that in. It's in a restaurant in Manhattan, and it's gonna be in Midtown somewhere because they work in Midtown, and then I just throw in whatever snippets from my main sandbox into these subcategories. This is not in any order. You're just dumping them in. Okay, it's like take all the yellow pieces of the puzzle over here, all the tree pieces of the puzzle, or the people, you just grouping them. There's no kind of order. That's character. That's character scenes. You can also, however it comes up, I don't know exactly what you're going to be working with, but for example, I have another example here about setting. Part of my novel takes place in North Carolina in the Outer Banks. What novel doesn't? I mean, everybody goes to the Outer Banks. It's one of the reasons why I said it there, because people love, the banker horses, and it's so romantic and all that. People are rolling around having sex on the beach, whatever. So, and these people are very wealthy. I've been to the Outer Banks, but I haven't been to the multi-million-dollar mansion section, which is in the northern section of the Outer Banks. I had to do some research on that, and we'll talk about research in a few weeks. But in the meantime, I know I needed to show versus tell that this family had a lot of money, and so the house they have in the Outer Banks is not a shack, So I just have here Outer Banks beach house description because I go back and forth to this house throughout the novel. So basically, you are chunking out by category the content of your main sandbox into individual sandboxes that you will continue to play in. So you're still going to continue to play. You're still playing. So there's that subconscious, playful, open to possibility side. Yet you're playing within a structure. And frankly, it's a structure that your subconscious mind created, not your conscious mind. What you're doing with your conscious mind is taking that stuff and putting it into the computer in such a way that you don't go nuts 12 weeks from now or even 6 weeks from now, when you're looking for a snippet of information that you intuitively believe is crucial to your plot, and you can't find it because you're working in a 500-page document with tens of thousands of words. So let's see. Oh, so now you have the first layer of order for your novel, the first layer of order. So within each of these categories, you're going to play with content. You'll shift them around as the weeks go on. We don't know exactly how you're going to do it, but just like the puzzle pieces, you got to try, fit things together, say, oh yeah, this goes over here, this goes over here, and then things start to emerge. A picture starts to emerge, just like the puzzle. So to clarify the jigsaw puzzle metaphor, on this last point, you decide to work with scene descriptions first. There's this idea of this beach house in the Outer Banks keeps coming up. It keeps coming up. It keeps coming buzz. What it looks like. And then they run from the beach, and then somebody gets killed on the beach, and there's a lighthouse or whatever. And there's all of this information. There's all this content that is in the category of this beach house in the Outer Banks. And so let's say you start with that. You also have a category of character motivation. Let's say you're a villain. My villain's name is Edgar. And so I'm not a villainous kind of person, so I had to really think about how Edgar is being Machiavellian in his behavior and what his character arc is going to be, where he starts and travels in terms of character over the course of the novel. So pick one, just pick one and start, all right? So with the jigsaw puzzle, I picked bright yellow. Why do you start with the bright yellow pieces first? I don't know, because you feel like it. You like the color, bright yellow. It makes you happy. Your instinct whispers to start here. So that's where you start, just because. Again, don't overthink it. Just pick a sandbox and start playing. As you start looking more closely at this particular sandbox, these yellow pieces, or let's say it's the Outer Banks multi-million-dollar mansion beach house, and you start turning around, you start playing with this particular sandbox, it's more order is going to begin to emerge. Oh yeah, so this is what happens, and this is what happens, and your novel is actually telling you how it wants to be organized. And you see, oh, this is where this goes. This goes right here. Woo, that's exciting. I remember when that happened, and we'll talk about that in the surprises section. So if you ever played with a puzzle, you know that feeling of accomplishment. You've seen all these, these 1,000-piece puzzles or 500-piece puzzles, and you're thinking, oh, good Lord. But when you finally get those first 2 or 3, yes, you feel like I'm on my way. I'm working toward that big picture. Well, that's the similar feeling, I suspect. That's one that I got, and I hope that's one that you will experience, because that means that you're truly having fun, and you're truly relating, being in relationship with your novel. So basically, you just go through, you chunk out your main sandbox into smaller sandboxes by category. Now, this means I've been telling you for 2 weeks, or I've been suggesting for 2 weeks, that you do not actually go back and read what you've written, or in this case, in this week, what you've typed. Well, now, obviously, if you are to chunk out by category, smaller sandboxes from your main sandbox that you've been working in. You're going to have to go through what you've written. And I highly recommend that you do this as you go, as you work, rather than fill up 10 notebooks, those composition notebooks, and then try to, then type in and organize. It becomes a sprint, and this journey is a marathon. So piece by piece, chunk it out, bit by bit, pace yourself like you would in a marathon as you go. You want to title them and literally title them what they are. So, Janna argues with Angie, because then when you go back to your sandbox, without even opening that document, you know what's in there. And that's really important. Say, oh no, I don't want to deal with the argument now. I want to deal with Hetty tells Chastain, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I want to deal with so-and-so finds out that they're adopted. Okay, so if you title them exactly as the category dictates, it's going to be you're going to have a much easier time retrieving them. It's going to be simple, in fact, automatic. So if you need to go back into your sandbox document, but I don't want you to read it. Now you might say, Gina, well, how am I going to find, the different categories if I don't read the document? And that would be an excellent question. As it happens, I have an answer for you. You are not reading. You are skimming. That's the difference. You are skimming. You're dealing with your novel at the macro level, up here, surface. You're not dealing with it down here in the deep strata, okay? You're not dealing with it in particular. It's very surface at this point. It's just big chunks, big categories. So that means you don't have to read, all right? We skim faster than we read. When we skim, we do so precisely because we don't have a lot of time, or we choose not to invest a lot of time in reading deep content, getting deep into the content. We just want the big idea, the top layer, the gist. All right, we're not worried about the details. That is the case now at this first layer of order in your novel. You were skimming the contents of your main sandbox document for the big ideas, the headlines, all right, solely because you want to know where to put these big ideas, where to chunk them out in your different sandbox categories. That's all. You just want to know that this is related to the beach house, and this is related to these characters arguing, and this is related to these characters having a baby, and this is related to, and this is the setting in Manhattan. You don't care about the details because frankly those details are probably going to change over the weeks. All right, you just want the big ideas at this point. So that's why you're skimming like that speed reading thing. And that's where you're going to stay right now. You are going to stay in the headline mode. All right, don't concern yourself with drilling down to chapters, paragraphs, sentences, or words. Stay at this level, the surface layer of your novel. All right. Whew. There's going to be slides at the end of this, and hey, I'll see you in session 4.